Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to Business is Boring. What does it take to make a new kind of drink for a new kind of occasion and take it to the world from Aotearoa? Today, we look into the story of Wai Mānuka, the premium sparkling honey drink. Co-founder and CEO Joseph Harawira joins us to share the kaupapa, story and mateship behind growing Wai Mānuka. Tēnā koe, thank you for joining us.
Kia ora, Simon. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, so first up, tell us about how this idea kind of emerged from a chat with mates at a Whakatāne New Year's.
Yeah, sure. So it really started as a New Year's Eve idea between myself and a few good mates. We were at a friend's place for a barbecue. It was 2019 going into 2020. So I hardly ever drink alcohol, and that night I was drinking pineapple kombucha, and it tasted nothing like pineapple. And I remember complaining to everyone at the party, and after they finished giving myself a bit of stick, we sort of jumped into solutions mode. And by the end of the night, we'd sort of come up with this concept of taking a Mānuka honey, spring water infused beverage to the world, and we were going to call it the healing water of Aotearoa at that stage. And why we were kind of focused on sort of Mānuka honey and spring water was because we wanted to create something that would be sort of embraced and loved by the world. We wanted it to be an export product from day one. And at the same time, we wanted it to sort of celebrate sort of New Zealand and Māori culture, our connection to the whenua and that type of thing. So there's this whole kind of sort of kaupapa woven into it. And then on New Year's Day, so I dropped everyone off home at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then on New Year's Day, I woke up and then did a bit of desktop research. And then I saw that no one was actually making a premium alternative to alcohol using Mānuka honey. And that was kind of the green light for us to give it a nudge.
And were you guys involved in the world of making products at the time? Like, what was the in to go, hey, we should be doing this?
So I started with 2 of my good mates. One of them was a primary school teacher. The other one at the time was he was the floor manager at Super Liquor, and I was working at New Zealand Rugby. So short answer is no. None of us had any sort of industry or beverage experience up to that point. We sort of just went in blind and learned as we went along.
So what does it take to create a new drink and like a whole new category, right? Because it's like not like a mead, it's not like a sparkling water, it's a new kind of thing for people to think about.
Yeah, I would say it takes like absolute belief in what you're doing and the vision that you want to create. I also feel that if we weren't as naive, like this is 4 or 5 years ago, and so we were pretty green and naive back then. And I think we needed to be, because if we had come from the industry and knew some of the constraints and challenges that sort of were before us, then that might have swayed our decision of not creating this this beverage with a goal of going global kind of a thing. So I think the fact that we were green and we were really wanted to bring this vision to life of celebrating Aotearoa and Māori culture on the world stage, I think that provided us with the drive really to want to do this despite all the challenges.
And how do you go about actually going from idea, water from the Gisborne area, the Mānuka honey, and bringing those elements together in a sustainable package? How do you go from that kind of concept to, finding suppliers, formulating a drink, getting it into market?
Yeah, it's totally. Listen, it really comes down to sort of the strength of your networks. So for us, and the timing of COVID really. So, coming out of New Year's, this is 2020 now, the country went into lockdown in March. And so I moved back from Wellington to Whakatāne, which is where we were from, for lockdown because my mum lives alone. Rather than being a hindrance, the lockdown actually gave us the time and the space to build the business and develop the recipe and find the right people. So it was a bit of a buffer really for us to get our feet under the desk to figure out what it was that we were creating and who was going to help us to do it.
And how do you go out? So you kind of work the network, find kind of reliable people. I mean, how do you lead a conversation with a new supplier to kind of go, hey, we're going to try this new thing?
Yeah, I just reached out through my networks on social media and email. Luckily, I've done a few things. So I've spent time in the military, and then I studied at Massey, and then ended up working for the NRL and rugby league and then New Zealand rugby. So as a result of all of these connections, we were able to find sort of like a beverage consultant and then a designer team to help us with the packaging, and we were able to bring it together relatively easy because everyone else was everyone else was at home and they had a bit of time and they were looking for different projects. So it all really played in our favor. And rather than COVID being a hindrance, it really was an enabler for us.
Tell us about the brand that you built and the name and, the design of the packaging, as it's a really beautiful thing to kind of look at and touch.
Yeah, thank you. We really wanted to sort of capture the essence of Aotearoa Māori culture within the brand name, the design, the look and feel, and of course sort of the values. So the name sort of Wai Mānuka, that actually represents sort of, Wai is water and Mānuka represents the sort of Mānuka honey aspect. And then sitting above that, we have a broader kind of vision or statement, which is He taonga no Aotearoa, which means a precious gift from New Zealand. And that was gifted to us from my mum, who taught Te Reo Māori at Kohanga Reo. And then the Māori design that's sort of woven into every bottle, that was gifted to us from a renowned tāmoko artist. His name is Katsumaihi. And that particular design, it represents sort of the changing of the seasons, and in particular it pays homage to the relationship bees have with nature and making Mānuka honey. So there's this whole sort of kaupapa that's woven into it where that we wanted to share with the world. So for us, the reason why we're doing this is because it represents us and where we're from and who we are, but also it's there's a philosophical goal. So if you're a Kiwi and you're overseas and you happen to be trying Wai Mānuka, you feel a connection to home. There's an emotional pull. There's a sense of pride because this product has come from home. And if you're non-Kiwi, then Wai Mānuka gives you the opportunity to experience your own little slice of Aotearoa. It's kind of like, I travel a lot, and when you're overseas and you're walking through the airport and you look out to the tarmac and you see like an Air New Zealand plane with the koru, and straight away, like you might be at Heathrow or JFK or whatever, but straight away you feel a connection to home. That's the feeling we want to recreate through Wai Mānuka around the world.
And that idea of being very export first from the beginning, very quickly after launch, you had that in the America's Cup Village, right? Like, tell us about that kind of like straight to export journey.
Yeah, the journey that we weren't ready for, yeah, sure. So halfway through lockdown, one of our mentors forwarded me an expression of interest for beverages for the America's Cup. So at that point, they'd gone out to market and they were asking beverage brands to put forward their proposals to represent Aotearoa at the regatta. And all he said in the email was, way too early for you guys, but this is an example of what's out there, just wanted to share. And then I had a look at sort of the criteria, and what they were asking for was, we want to work with brands that celebrate New Zealand, that embrace whanaungatanga, manaakitanga. And like, as I read through this list, and despite the fact we hadn't made the product just then, I was like, dude, we meet all of this. So I put in an application, thought nothing of it, and then 2 weeks later I got invited to for a panel interview. Did the panel interview and thought I bombed it. And the main reason why I thought I bombed it was because I've got no industry experience, man. I didn't know how to make a beverage. We hadn't even made it at that point. So thought nothing of it, left. Yep, sweet, let's just carry on. And then a couple of weeks later, got a phone call from the head of food and beverage for the America's Cup. And so she was like, rightio, I just wanted to give you a call because we've made a decision. So we've selected 6 brands to represent New Zealand at the America's Cup. 4 are alcoholic brands, 2 are non-alcoholic, and we're going to go with Coke and you. And I was like, what the fudge? Yeah, mate, that gave us sort of an unprecedented launch to market in terms of profile and exposure, and then we were able to build up sort of some nationwide kind of connections off the back of that and launch into the likes of New World. Funny story, we did I flicked in a random email to 7 Sharp on the afternoon that we got selected for the America's Cup, and all I said in the email was like, do you guys want a random story? There's 3 Māori boys from Whakatāne have just made a beverage and got selected for the America's Cup. That afternoon, they called and they were like, when are you available to do a story?
That's so good. And like such a great example about how a brand with real purpose will go further in places where that matters than brands that don't have real purpose. And that like news, you know, like people worry so much about how to get PR and stuff, right? But if you've got a real story, that's all that any media wants, right?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the really defining things on the whole journey is the strength in being yourself, authenticity, and living your own values and not trying to be anyone else. That is the value proposition. Like I feel like too many people sort of want to copy or be like others, but well, that certainly hasn't worked for us. We're just us.
And we'll be back in a moment to chat about how Wai Mānuka has grown and what's coming next. What stage is the business at now? Like you came straight out of the gates, you and a little emerging brand called Coca-Cola representing New Zealand at the America's Cup. And then from there, you've grown into some really great export markets as a kind of flag bearer for Aotearoa. Where's the brand at today?
So today we've continued to scale across Aotearoa, so this will always be sort of the provenance story. And at the same time, we've managed to launch trials into Japan and New York City. This is off the back of some really great trade missions on the likes of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. So we've got a small trial happening in Japan with a large importer distributor. We're in a few sort of high-end hotels there. And Japan is very much a slow burn. That's just how business is done there. And then in New York, we're partnered with a high-end importer distributor. We launched into New York about 4 months ago, and we're scheduled to be in around about 100 sort of outlets across the city by the end of this summer. So that's pretty exciting. And sort of at the same time, we're building out an Amazon platform to launch online next month in New York, and we're also sort of fielding interest from different states. So it's definitely a rapid growth market, which is New York City.
That's so cool. And what things along that journey have been kind of harder than expected, and what's been easier than expected?
Certainly the hard one is trying to grow a global brand into sort of capital intensive markets that is Japan and New York with limited working capital. So at the minute, like I'm still the only full-timer in Wai Mānuka. One of the boys exited a couple of years, so we started it with 3. And one of the bros is still involved. He still works full-time, and he just helps out where he can. So that sort of leaves me kind of juggling everything. And yeah, that's the hardest thing is the lack of capital to invest in growth and to make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, and like it's such a capital intensive business, right? Like even getting a big order just means, got to get more inventory and get it to market and do the 3PL. There's an enormous amount of logistics. But the flip side to that is if you get great distribution, you can very quickly get to quite good scale as a business.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of reminds me of a saying that we used to have back in New Zealand rugby was working in sort of the high performance space, and that is the saying was go slow to go fast. So whilst there's a lot of exciting opportunities in the US, it's a very complex market. It's super competitive, and every state you've more or less got to treat like another country. And because of that, you've really got to go in there focused on creating sustainable growth. So you don't want to do too much too soon or grow too aggressively, because the chances are you won't be able to keep up. Because it's like to your point around sort of scale and distribution, getting your product on shelf through a distributor is only only solving half the challenge. The other half is getting it off the shelf and at scale and consistently. So that's where a lot of brands fall over. Like, it's one thing to get on the shelf, it's another thing to get off it. And that's why we're very mindful of taking a targeted approach to how we grow in New York. So specifically targeting high-end hotels, restaurants and cafes and boutique retail chains, just really building up that foundation, understanding where in the channels sort of Wai Mānuka can win and what our customers look like. And then once we've got that, then we can start sort of expanding on it.
And how does the authenticity and the story travel? Like, it's such a unique thing to see on a shelf in America, right? That's so cool. How does that story and that kind of honesty go?
Yeah, it actually blew me away in terms of the curiosity and how the Māori provenance story in particular resonated with the US audience. So I was lucky enough to go up to New York last month, I think it was, for a trade show where we exhibited to like 5,000 people from the hospitality industry, and that's one of the small ones. And during that time, people were so curious about Māori culture, and I think the thing for Wai Mānuka on the whole is it's got different layers of value proposition. So firstly, there's the uniquely New Zealand, then there's the Mānuka honey halo effect, the natural ingredients, and then the Māori sort of culture sort of woven into it, all being a premium non-alcoholic beverage. So it's got all of these layers of sort of value for different customers, and I think that's really sort of resonating with sort of US audiences who are wanting to feel they're wanting more than just a product. They're wanting like a story. And I feel like that's the thing that sort of Wai Mānuka gives them, is a story of connection to Aotearoa, to Māori culture. Certainly what happened last year in Parliament and the haka that took place around the world shone the light on Māori culture even more, because when we launched into New York a couple of months ago, our US partner headlined a news article up with Māori provenance brand lands in New York, which is pretty cool.
That's super cool. What things have you brought to this journey of building a business from your past careers in high performance with sport and from serving with the military?
I think for myself, those experiences have given me perspective. So, because it's tough when you're like trying to grow a business with global aspirations on a shoestring budget, and you're the only full-timer and you're operating in 3 different countries, different time zones, you're juggling a lot. But the perspective piece comes into play where, I was lucky enough to serve overseas in the New Zealand Army, to go on operations, served with the British forces and so forth. And you get to see kind of, I guess, the best and worst of what humans are capable of doing to each other. And I feel like those experiences sort of provide you with a benchmark or a yardstick. So whenever I face what I think is a tough situation in the beverage game, I think back to sort of some of those experiences and realise that, it's not. And then kind of delving into the professional sports side of things, be it rugby league or New Zealand rugby, that's all about kind of sort of your resilience and your ability to push through challenges and to grow, and to, your ceiling just keeps sort of going, kind of a thing. So I feel like those experiences through my different careers have put me in good stead for running a company with global ambitions. And it was funny, I was talking to a potential investor the other day, and he goes to me, one of the things I'm really concerned about is founder energy. And then I was like, what do you mean? Because like so many founders burn out and, you're just at the start of export growth and what you're saying sounds great, but there's a lot of work where are you at energy-wise? I was like, dude, I'm like in first gear, man. He laughed. There was a bit of a pause, but so if anything, it's given me a bit of a reality spin as to what is really hard. And being in business, whilst it can be hard at times, I'm not a doctor working on the emergency department of an ED.
Yeah. And what's coming next for you and the brand? You were mentioning there speaking to investors. What will more capital for the business unlock and enable you to do?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're sort of navigating through a capital raise. We've just launched onto the New Zealand Trade Enterprise Active Investor Plus platform, which will open us up to global investors. What we're looking at doing is we're raising sort of 1.5 million, and that'll give us the opportunity to accelerate growth in New York and to build out a foundation. So that's our primary market. And we want to invest more into that market over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. And at the end of that, our goal would be to be knocking on the door of one of the nationwide retail chains within sort of 18 months to 2 years, leading to the next capital raise. This is probably a 5 to 7 year journey to get to sort of maybe an acquisition or a strategic partnership.
Yeah, and that kind of global view, the cool thing about AIP is the ability that's the program where international investors can get residency by investing 5 million in growth businesses or 10 million in more balanced kind of things. And that's really cool because one thing I've noticed about the local investment scene is there's just not that many investors who specialize in or have experience or are comfortable with FMCG compared to technology or really traditional businesses, right? But in big markets like the States, there's so many sophisticated consumer and FMCG investors. So it'd be a dream if like someone who could be part of your growth there becomes a part of the company, right?
Oh, totally, man. Like if we could, if we could partner with a global investor who has a background in sort of food and beverage or the beverage industry and an understanding of the US market, that would be fantastic because it's one thing to sort of secure capital, but it's another thing to secure smart capital. So you want someone who's going to be strategically active in your business that's going to unlock the next opportunity for growth.
Yeah, and from talking to great FMCG people in the local scene, like Brianne West of Atik and Now Incredibles, you always hear from them that it's finding the people who believe in what you do and understand, they could be your customer. And wish you all the best for the capital raise and taking this mission to the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited about the next sort of phase of growth for Wai Mānuka as we sort of build out the global presence. So it's going to be an interesting time. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, not at all. And as a last couple of thoughts, what would your advice be for people who are looking to create something new that carries something more than just the product, that carries purpose and a story?
Mate, you're talking to the guy who's sold his house to invest in the business and burned through all his life savings. I would say just give it a go, throw everything into it. And, for all of the challenges we face as a nation kind of a thing, we're hands down one of the best countries to live in the world. If you're healthy, confident and educated, you're never going to fall too far, and that should be the green light for any aspiring entrepreneur or founder who's got an idea to bring that thing to life and throw everything into it.
And as a final thought, what will success be for you and for Wai Mānuka?
Success for us would be seeing Wai Mānuka experienced around the world by people of all cultures. And us being able to connect those people to Aotearoa.
So cool. Well, can't wait to see where you take it next. And thank you so much for sharing the journey so far. And if anyone is interested, get in touch and see if you can be part of the mission to take Wai Mānuka to the world. Kia ora.
Simon, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciated being on the show. Kia ora.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Joseph Harawira of Wai Mānuka. Thank you to everyone who helps make this happen, like our producer Te Aihe Butler, and thank you for having us along in your ears and listening. If you do like what we do, please do rate and leave a review. It really does help. E no hora.